How's this for a weird laugh? So, in my travels today, I encountered somebody who looked eerily similar to a fellow I used to run in the same circles with. Keep in mind, this was in a different state, different time, obviously, and certainly a different mindset. So it was it was like culture shock. We passed each other, we looked at each other. I don't think he understood the connection that is. I couldn't remember his name, but I was pretty fucking sure it was him. Naturally, I mean, wrinkles, scars, and whatnot. We have some new ones. Either way, we were wandering around in a store, and eventually I approached him and said, "Hey, did you used to work at, yada yada?" It was the second call center I ever subjected myself to, and it was pretty. How should I put it? A lot of free-willed people worked there, and it was pretty lax, to say the least. Either way. So I ran into somebody from damn near 25 years ago, out of the fucking blue here in Portland. We had a brief interaction, and I highly doubt that he knows this, but he also just provided me with a line that I swear I'm going to open a book with. It was fucking fantastic. And so looking back in time, I remember moments interacting with him. I remember moments seeing him in the call center, and I never would have guessed that this interaction this many years later would provide me, in this, at least I'm going to use something from this moment is what I'm getting at, with something that others may be privy to, and they might also take something away from by extension. Oh, and as always, what the fuck do I know? This was just well, I shouldn't put it in so many words because that might tell you something, but it was a beautiful moment, and if you heard me out, thanks for listening to this shit. I'm going to tell you a fucked up story, too. At least I think that's the plan. A lot of thoughts at the moment. Last night I had a number of epiphanies, and as some of you might know, I put them off. I prolong these so that I make sure I retain them. I'm skimming off the fat, so to speak, and or testing my memory through a battery of other bullshit, some of which is absolutely detrimental and very fucking stupid, but just the same. So, and this cuts so many fucking ways, either way. One of the things I mean to rattle off is I've been digesting the latest content, which is actually a old hat now. My mom back in New Mexico, she really likes that storytelling having to do with Outlander, which I've put off because I didn't know if they would finish the series. And I wasn't about to throw myself into something yet again where they don't finish it. Outer Range is a shitty example, and it is shitty fucking storytelling as well. But it also wasn't finished, and yet I'm also happy that's dead and done. But, yeah, so I've allowed myself to run through some of the Outlander stuff. So what I'm getting at with this is the universe will fucking sing to you if I'm not mistaken. You can consider this a coincidence. But I've been running to the same bus stop for quite a while, long term, to paint a picture for you, a muddy picture. I've been sitting outside this bus stop. I'm next to a yuppie joint, two yuppie joints, mind you, one of which I frown upon, the other isn't so bad. And everybody who comes out of these establishments usually assumes I'm fucking homeless, just because I'm not dressed the same way as all the fucking yuppies. I'm not conducting myself in the same way as all the fucking yuppies. And, yeah, so throughout doing this, one of the establishments, the one that I don't frown on, there's a gal that rents a space there only a portion of the time, and she'll tell me good evening, which says a lot about her heart. And so we have a kind rapport. That's one way to put it. Not a great way, but one way. And that's something, especially here in Portland, because Portland's, Jesus fucking Christ. Here's another quick story. Before I get into what I was getting at with Outlander, I've been eating vegan garbage lately. some of which is sausage. And if you guys know about new treasons, you know, no seasons, I mean new seasons. Some of you might not. It's a yuppie grocery store here in Portland, Oregon, in the Northwest. Sometimes I flip things, but yeah, Northwest. I went in there with two different packagings from yuppie sausage that I bought. One was green, one was brown. The brown cost, and I didn't know this at the time because I didn't pay attention, but it charged me $10 and change. The green charged me, because these are on sale, mind you, $6 or $7 and change. Expensive as fuck, in both cases. So I went in and I asked these assholes, what the fuck's going on? Why are these prices varying? So we went to the product in the store, and I bought it at a different location. And the fella in question, he's very kind. He told me that they're employing the use of AI to set prices, and this is no different from what they used to do. If you travel around Portland, Oregon, there are multiple locations of new seasons or no seasons. What was the other one I said? No treasons? Either way, that doesn't sound right to me at the moment. Either way, the prices vary based on where you're at, based on gentrification, which is absolutely arbitrary, but this is just as good as patently fascist censorship these days. It's absurd. It is absurd. So eventually he gave me a refund, which was nice. It was very kind of him, but he had no idea what was fucking going on, which is the worst fucking part, because this shit is subject to something that shouldn't be. It does not make sense to take the control aspect out of anything and put it in the realm of bullshit AI. But this is where we're at. So I want you to appreciate that. So back to the Outlander stuff. Lots of Scots, not necessarily Ireland, but, you know, what people consider, you know, quote-unquote Gaelic, is spoken between the Irish and the Scots, crudely speaking. You don't necessarily refer to it as that, but they do in the programming, if I'm not mistaken, but what the fuck do I know? Back to point. I've been going to this bus stop long term, and out of the fucking blue, and consider it a coincidence, maybe it is, there was a beautiful redheaded gal standing at the stop when I arrived. Never seen her before, totally out of the blue, probably the only time I ever bump into her. But the point to this is, if you're focused on something, and I've been digesting this programming, the universe will sing to you. If you pay attention to the patterns, moreover, not just a redheaded gal that is appealing to the eye, physically speaking, based on the lowest aspect of our chakras, the universe will sing to you. I also want you to appreciate she was standing exactly where I usually crash. I interacted with her. I asked if she didn't mind if I sat to the left of her. She was very kind. She didn't hesitate. She didn't seem off-put. And so that was nice. So I got settled, and after the fact, I thanked her for not being weird, essentially. I don't think I worded it as much, but... And she was receptive, which I don't usually run into, especially with women here in Portland, Oregon. So all of that was it was off-putting and unnerving and all around welcoming, which is something I'm not used to these days. Which also was a red flag in a good way, but it made me question the interaction. Make of it what you will. I just figured I should at least give you that as well. You can track patterns, especially if you guys start using what I've provided you with as a tool. Some of you might know what I'm referring to, because in other instances of me taking the time and energy to record videos like this, I've spelled it out for you. Quite literally said, hey, here are some of the keys to the kingdom. You can use these, because I'm trying to help you. But most people are taking me for a ride. Most people don't put in the fucking time and energy, and you see this with the view counts. If I'm not saying, hey, here's the prepackaged thing for you to repeat to sound smarter than you actually are, most people don't give a fuck. Because most people aren't invested, which means they're not involved. It's a problem. Surprise, tangent cam. So think about it. Why were you and I provided with... This is interesting that it keeps bobbing because this thing is stationary right now. It must be a hair. It is a hair. Interesting. All right, back to point. So why would you and I be provided with the option to, scroll and scroll and scroll and... Why would that be something that's part of social engineering apps? Harmless, right? Absolutely benign. Who fucking cares? It's just something you're familiar with. It's how else would we, scroll through the applications? How would we digest the content? So when I provide you with something, and I say, hey, I need you to think for yourself, you can easily dismiss this. You can flip the page. You can flip the script. You can kick it to the fucking proverbial curb. And instead, you can keep scrolling. It looks very masculine when dudes scroll, by the way. That's something I remember taking to heart when I first saw somebody scrolling through their phone. And I was like, Jesus, that sure looks really masculine, watching a dude do that. That's another ball of wax. But back to point, you can dismiss what I just said, and you can digest the latest content and be, just easily taken in by all the fucking superficial fucking fluff. That's how it works. That's why it works. That's why it is what it is. But assume what you will. What the fuck do I know? But it's also telling of the times. If you look at any video you find online, typically speaking, the ratio to how many people viewed the video versus how many people interacted and did so to promote the video that they viewed. And keep in mind, maybe some of them didn't like the video, so knock that down a notch. But you're still going to see a disproportionate ratio. Fewer people will support something that they did in fact enjoy, that they usually, typically speaking, took something fucking away from. Not in all cases, mind you. But the point is, most people are not willing to do the right thing. So back to the redheaded gal, back to the bus stop, back to Outlander. If this is, a correlation based on how you and I manifest what's what. Maybe. Maybe it's not. There was some dipshit kid who was across the street. I could hear his fucking music from his phone because he's wandering around. I think he's in his teens or his early 20s. Either way, he's a dipshit. Buy some fucking headphones, you dumb twat. That's how I look at it. Because you're imposing on other people and you obviously have no fucking taste. Low standards these days, but what do I know? He ends up wandering over. He wanders past me. He proceeds to glare at me because I'm looking at him because he's a dumb fuck. And so we lock eyes. And I just wait for it. And he doesn't. He doesn't engage. He doesn't do anything more. I mean, I'm not a big guy, but I'm happy to punch him in the fucking nose if he acts like a fucking cunt. More than he already was, mind you. But just to be a fucking cunt, he did march back and forth a few different times, and I'm trying to do the right thing. If the gal wasn't there, I might have been a bastard about this. But because the gal was there, I wasn't about to impose on his night, or on her night, pardon me. And either way, this is just me getting my balls in a fucking knot because this kid's a moron, in my humble opinion. You and I shouldn't be surrounded by people like that when headphones are, they're not necessarily affordable, but they're reasonably cheap enough. People should have fucking headphones instead of wandering around. I remember back in the 80s, growing up in New Mexico, lived on a dirt road, what have you, and I remember some idiots when I would go down to the park walking around with their fucking boom boxes because this was something that was made, it was normalized. And they could have had headphones. These things, some of them had jacks eventually. Yeah. It just baffles me. You and I are surrounded by stupid fucking people is the point to that. The other aspect of what I'm poorly highlighting in this video is reality will sing to you. It will sing to you, sure as shit. Make no mistake of that and assume what you want. But if you're paying attention and there is intent there, and I'm not spoon feeding you the other stuff. I saw something online having to do with 17 seconds. Some of you might have seen what I'm alluding to without telling you what it is. And they left so much out. But it's something that's being circulated right now. There are techniques or tools that I could teach you. So here's something else I'm going to throw out there. Make sure I'm flipping these the right way. This is from my landlord. This is rectifying something that some of you helped me through. 3 of you out there helped me out through a really bad situation. And I thank you from the bottom of my fucking crusty heart. And I really do thank you. This is from, if I'm not mistaken, the IRS. It says Department of Revenue, but in particular the state of Oregon. I just want to see what it says, because you and I are not free. Make no mistake of that. Assume what you will. But I have a private bank account. I'm going through Chase. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Chase Manhattan. Some of you might have seen the other video. Very few of you probably did. Where I still use Chase Manhattan because of the grandfather program where I still get free checks from them, which is why I haven't got rid of that shit. Now, this is interesting too. So, what took place is earlier in the month, my rent was stolen from my private account. And it was a legal matter, mind you. A legal matter. They assessed an additional $100 to rip me off. No explanation. Chase Manhattan had no idea what was going on. When I contacted numerous people, they had no idea what was going on through the state of Oregon. Keep in mind, I should have no outstanding debts. I try to keep things above board. Eventually, what somebody claimed, and he told me, this dated back to 2021, roughly 2022. And he told me that he took my rent, there was nothing I could do, happy holidays, you're fucked. That's what it boiled down to. So I just got mail today, and it's still claiming that I owe $661.77, even though they just financially raped me. And this is dated to December 18th, which does not make any fucking sense. They put a hold on my account. They stole my rent. I did not have access to that. So, on the spot, fuck you. Figure this out. We have no information on either end. Good luck with that. And who fucking cares, if your living situation is jeopardized, but we just fucked you over. Even though you supposedly have a private account, you are supposedly a citizen. Keep in mind, if you're a citizen, that equates to a debt slave as of 1913, and there's nothing but proof, because all currency became debt-based. This goes back to JFK, which was one of the many stewards of the corporation, but there's no gold standard, there's no silver standard, which is why JFK was supposedly talking about introducing a silver standard. That's neither here nor there, because there is none, and it didn't happen. The point is, all currency, all monetary, this, that, and the other thing. Promissory notes. What was another one? Greenbacks. These are all debt. In the event that you're a lazy, stupid fuck and you have no idea what's going on because you've never looked into anything in your life, which means you are buying into things. You're not looking into them. You are the problem. 1913, the Federal Reserve was established under the pretense of being both voluntary and temporary. Today, 2024, does the fucking Federal Reserve, does it exist? And the answer is yes, because you and I are surrounded by fucking retards who maintain our master's horse shit. Because they don't stand up and do the right fucking thing. They're not willing to fight for the right thing. They're not willing to walk the walk and die for what fucking matters. These things stand. This is why you and I are a debt slave. Make no mistake of that. But assume what you will, because most of you are fucking retards. And it's levied against you and I. The fact that you and I exist, this has to do with the straw man. This has to do with the stock exchange. This has to do with your birth certificate, your social security number, and all that shit that controlled opposition assets were put in place to tell you about, because it's a form of lesser magic, because this is a consent-based system. Jordan Maxwell, what is it? Is it Chris? Oh, I always fuck up his last name. I always mix him up with some guy, it's that fucker that played Kirk. The bargain bin, Captain Kirk, who's in movies because of nepotism. I remember him popping up in, I can't think of the fucking name of it. The movie with Jeremy Piven. Is it Wild Aces, Lucky Aces, Dumb Fuck Aces? Something like that. I can't remember it. Either way, it was a knockoff of a bunch of other Tarantino and other garbage like that. Either way, back to point. So I shouldn't be receiving something like this in the mail, is my point, especially with it being dated December 18th, when the hold on my account was quite literally through the 17th. The 17th is when they said, well, then we'll fucking do something with it. We won't tell you why we're doing this. But supposedly this is when we're going to fucking just, pull the money out of your account, even though you've been financially raped already. So instead, they send me documentation the day after, claiming that I still owe the money that as far as I know, they stole from me out of the account. It's gone. It's been gone. I had no access to it. Which is why rent was in jeopardy. And that's not something that a free person would experience. But I'm a citizen. Because I have a birth certificate. I have a social security card. I've consensually, W-2s? When I've worked for a job, or worked at a job, for, mind you, the trilateral city-states, in case you're fucking stupid, I've consented to this. Because how else do you work? For the corporation. People call it a country. They call America this, that, and the other thing. It became a fucking corporation in 1871 when the Organic Act established a phony jurisdiction. Talking about spheres, or you could think of it as nesting cubes. But it's a bullshit fairy tale that people believe in, they repeat, and they buy into. This is part of why and how you and I are manipulated. And you should be concerned with these things, because this is not what a free person with, rights under natural law would be subjected to. Black Saturnian kangaroo courts, as wordy as that may be, would not exist. These horseshit hoops, these stupid human hoops, would not exist if you and I were surrounded by people who had a goddamn clue what was going on. And so when I think of that kid marching around without fucking headphones, he's a dumb fuck. He's modeling himself after other people he's seen before. He thinks that's fucking hip or da bomb. And I'm using old jargon because it might make you laugh. And it might also make you think, Jesus, this guy dated even more than I realized. There's a method to my madness. These days, that kid could march around without fucking headphones, and kids wouldn't think that's cringe. And that's the only time you're ever going to hear me say that. Just so you know. Just so you know. Because dumb fucks repeat shit like that. Dumb. And I mean absolutely stupid as fuck. Cunts repeat shit like that. Assume what you will. This is the type of person who has paved the way for the garbage that you and I are experiencing, if I'm not mistaken. Now, here's the flip side. I talked about Outlander. I talked about the fact that my mom loves that storytelling, and that's something near and dear to me. And it has been endearing, digesting that quote-unquote content, that media, that storytelling, which comes from a series of novels. Is it Dana something or other? I can't think of the author's name. And some of it's all right. People I've talked to have said some of them don't like how she tells the story. And that's fair. That's very fair. There's quite a few authors out there I can't fucking stand. Some of which I like their writing, but I hate the fucking stories. What was I going to rattle off? I had something else, and I think I'm losing it at the moment. I need to eat something and pull apart a skateboard, because I've been skating in the rain. You might be able to see it. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It's wet. It's wet. And that's that. Either way, if you hung out, thanks for hanging out. And what the fuck do I know? What the fuck do I fucking know? Either way. I keep thinking of Field of Dreams, which is a horrible fucking movie. A lot of people raved about it, but it's fucking dog shit. And now there's supposedly a Mandela effect associated with it. Because it used to be, and it was, sure as shit, If you build it, he will come. Now you get the pronoun game when you watch it. If you build it, they will come. You know, Legion. One fucking thing. Fractalized bullshit. Either way, assume what you will. So, if you cede it to the DARPA internet, retards will repeat it. Case in point. Work.
For particles and stuff like that in Antarctica. Now,
this is one dumb fucking cunt.
Confirmed that there is indeed a parallel universe in Antarctica, y'all. This is crazy.
It's a parallel universe,
right? To for particles and stuff like that in Antarctica.
Well, that's believable.
Now, in this process, they noticed something that was very strange, and they said that they noticed these molecules.
I'm not going to play the rest of this because this is fucking stupid shit. This is stupid fucking propaganda. How do you know this for a fact? It's not censored online. If this reflected reality in this day and age and patently fascist censorship, in case you're absolutely fucking retarded and you aren't paying attention, what does reflect reality is being censored from the internet these days. Because this is the DARPA internet. You and I are using free social media, which are social engineering applications. These are extensions of the MK Ultra subprojects. Do people tell you this online? Typically, no, they don't. And if they are, it's censored on the fucking DARPA internet, which is why you haven't heard this. If you did, in fact, hear what I just said, consider what I said, look into what I said, think about what I said, work with what I said. Don't buy into it. Fucking think about it. Reason it out. If you don't know how to do that, pull your head out of your fucking asshole and think for yourself for the first time in your goddamn life. And the chances of that being the case are extremely likely. For most of you. If you've never hung out with me, 10 to 1. You're a dumb fuck. You're borderline retarded. You are mentally deficient, son. And you need to pull your head out of your ass. You need to be told these things. Because you're fucking shit up for yourself and others, including me. And on that note, fuck you. Because Jesus fucking Christ, you are the problem and you don't realize it. This gal is a sack of fucking meat. And nobody's going to tell her this. You can't tell her this on the fucking TikTok app. If you do, it will be challenged instantly. Here. Let's make sure we capitalize it. You're a moron. Because she is. It's going to jump.
Vladimir.
Give it time. It should be challenged. Usually it does right away. Maybe it's because I'm doing what I'm doing. We'll see. And I may stop this. Or stop the recording process. And when it does challenge the fact that I said moron, which is usually fucking flagged, then I'll record another one. To be honest, I'm kind of shocked it hasn't yet. Because usually it does. Lickety split. Alright, to be continued. Pardon me, I'm eating at the moment. What do I stress often? One of the many things. Simplify things, heathens. I'm going to use Raw Marabee, who I think is a wealth of fucking knowledge in terms of things that are censored on YouTube in particular, because they benefit you and I. Logic be damned. What he's talking about only has to do with this and how to benefit this. You can apply the same thought to anything and everything you could possibly fucking think of in physical fucking reality. I shit you not. If you don't know how to do that, you should think on it. You should sit with it. You should take pause. In other words, don't dash out the fucking door and react. Think about it, you stupid fuck.
Stuff like that, we tend to discredit it because we have been brainwashed to believe that when you have an ailment, it's very complicated. and you need to take very complex steps. This is far from the truth. The human body, the divine, if you believe in one, created the human body in such a way that it's too complex for us to understand or figure it out. You take a tiny portion of your tissue and put it under the microscope, you cannot believe what you see. That's how intricate it is. Yet the divine made it very simple for us to get better. And that's why I share it with you, is the fruits, herbs, it's therapeutics. Therapeutics mean like rebounding, exercising, meditation, prayer, walking, grounding, you name it. All those are therapeutics. Diet means eat a high fruit raw vegan diet because it's the fastest way of cleansing the lymphatic system. I'm not biased towards that. It's just what works. And the second one is use herbs to clean and strengthen. That's what I share with you. And the part 3 is one of them you use. This is probably the most inexpensive way of doing it because it's a tea. It will last you 2 weeks. Drip on a berry cleanse, melon cleanse, citrus cleanse. Sorry, you will see results. You cannot do that. Okay.
This man is amazing. If you've never run through what he's left online, it's well worth your time. What the fuck do I know? He also mentioned the divine, and I've rhymed numerous times over. I didn't mean to necessarily. I can paint a picture of what he's referring to and show you something. I'm not going to right now, but if you pull your head out of your ass and you prove to me that I can put faith and trust and etc. in you, I will show you things that people are not supposed to know. It would require you to think for yourself, put in time and energy, get things wrong because you mean to get things right. If you choose this path, it's the road less taken, to say the very least, because it's easy to do what people are doing these days. What people are leaning on like a fucking crutch is too easy. Which is why our masters use this type of behavior against you and I. I'm talking about entertainment and everything else under the sun, including but not limited to peer pressure, having to do with social engineering. What most people repeat is absolute dog shit, but it's been shopped around. It's well financed. It's well circulated, as I complain about, which is why you know about it. Why most people will argue in favor of it. In other words, because they work for our masters and they're too fucking stupid to realize it. They are the problem, and they don't get it because they've never looked into it. They bought into what they were sold. Told, sold, and urged to repeat is usually what I rattle off. And most people cater to that garbage. What this guy's talking about just having to do with this aspect of reality, for the most part, is uncorrupted. It's genuine, it's honest, it's good, it's wholesome. Assume what you will, but again, you would have to take the time and energy to look through this. Consider the information. Weigh the pros and the cons. Compare and contrast. Do your due diligence. But in the age of people just clicking fucking repost, how often do you think that happens? In terms of what people circulate and call information. This is why propaganda, this is why agendas, this is why all the shit that is technically setting us back, harming us, the shit that's disharmonious, is alive and fucking well. And it's because you and I are surrounded by bargain bin Muppets who are superficial as they come and equally fucking retarded. Make no mistake of that. But you'd have to think about it to appreciate what I just said. I've mentioned a number of points. I've spoon-fed you guys things that you should already know. In other words, it's shit that you should have already verified. You should have cross-referenced, compared and contrasted, etc. So you got the Michelson and Morley experiment, which you'll hear about here and there in the flat earth community horseshit. Keep in mind, the pseudo-intellectual flat earth is just as fucking ridiculous as the physics-defying globe theory. Both of those outlines, pardon me, both of the paradigms, the rabbit holes, the propaganda, are in place because you can't use either of them as a tool because they do not reflect reality as a whole. I guarantee you that much, but you'd have to look into it. And if you've given it no consideration, that means you just bought into something, and that's what you repeat, which means you don't know a fucking thing. So that's part of this. I've also rattled off, when you think of people talking about quote-unquote countries, those are corporations. They're part of an umbrella scheme, a larger conglomerate, if you will. The corporation is one way I think of it, even though it's not a great way to put it. Typically speaking, I'll dress that up as the trilateral city-states, because that is one of the biggest fucking corporations as a whole, which has numerous facets to it, but it governs what happens in our realm by and large. And if you don't believe me, the bottom of the trilateral city-states is in fact America, which is the District of Columbia. Which of the quote-unquote countries, if you look into how many years, you and I have been on this rock, and when America was established, and how many wars, quote-unquote, America has conducted, or at least been part of. They've been party to. Why would that be? Because it's part of the trilateral city-states quite literally pulling strings to gain more territory and power. I shit you not. And it's not something that is terribly fucking, obtuse in the slightest, in any form or way, but people haven't figured this much out because you and I aren't surrounded by people who are terribly bright. All right. So with that in mind, I've also rattled off anything that's, wait, did I already, I think I jumped, well, there's too many things I want to rattle off. I'm a walking disclaimer statement because you and I are surrounded by retards. Another thing I've rattled off has to do with the Rockefeller Trust. Anything that's well-financed, well-circulated, and typically speaking these are, financed by the Rockefeller Trust can't be trusted. So you have the Disclosure Project promoting test tube aliens. Aliens. Aliens don't exist. They never will exist. The closest thing you and I are ever going to come to in terms of quote-unquote aliens is a test tube man-made abomination. Something cooked up in a lab. In other words, humans augmenting, humans bastardizing what you and I are, our five-petal form, for the explicit purpose of misleading the masses, other humans, convincing them that some bullshit alien exists, which it doesn't, and it never will, based on where we are, what this is, and how it works. I realize I'm not spoon-feeding you the finer details having to do with that, but you could reason some of it out if you took the time, and the point is for you to take the fucking time, to be invested, which means you're involved. So when I talk about the Rockefeller Trust and originally Hillary Clinton, of all the fucking people on this rock, financed the Disclosure Project, which promotes alien horseshit, alien propaganda. It's since branched off because this is how things work. I'll bash the Bavarian Illuminati because it was disbanded. It is dead and done. What the Bavarian Illuminati became splintered off into numerous groups, and I bet you 10 to 1. I'm not a betting person for the most part, but if I had money and we did place a bet, you would lose. Because I guarantee you can't name a single one of those fucking groups. And instead, what do you hear online? You hear people squawking about the Illuminati. That's why there was a Taco Bell commercial, for fuck's sake, because our masters are laughing at us. A lot of times I'll joke around, our masters are laughing at us from tall buildings, because you and I are surrounded by fucking retards. What was the other thing I was going to rattle off having to do with this? Pardon me. Throat's bugging me. Another thing that I'll rattle off is the corporations, which are, people call countries, are in bed with one another. They're lying to each other. So I urge you to look into this. How many of the corporations or countries, corporations technically speaking, signed the Antarctic Treaty? And this is connected to this disclosure bullshit, mind you. It's another aspect of corrupting what does reflect reality, hiding things in plain sight, as people often rattle off but rarely think in terms of. And it should come up, but it rarely does. And in a minute, that will factor into this. If you think about, did America sign it, the Antarctic Treaty? And in a minute, you could look up, and the answer is yes. Did China sign the Antarctic Treaty? Yeah, they did. But you should look it up just to verify it for yourself. Even a superficial Google search will still tell you that much. Part of the reason I rattled all this shit off, the guy that you're staring at right now is a piece of shit. He's an absolute piece of shit. Anybody you've ever seen on the History Channel shopping around ancient alien garbage works for these fucking sacks of shit. This is one of them. The trickiest thing about this is sometimes you'll get acts of lesser magic that do reflect reality, bits and pieces. By and large, it's going to mostly be propaganda in place to mislead, manipulate, and by degrees subjugate you and I, as I fondly rattle off often. And pardon my throat once again. So, I mentioned the Michelson and Morley experiment. It was conducted to gauge whether or not the ether exists. Whether or not there is a field that binds and intertwines all fucking things. Same shit that you heard in The Empire Strikes Back. Having to do with the crude matter and something else. It's dressed up as the Force in the space propaganda that you know, like, and love, and I'm banking on you being familiar with. Now, what I need you to appreciate is when this guy was a lot younger, he gave a lecture, and he did disseminate some lesser magic that does reflect reality. It's intimately connected yet again with one of those numerous things that are rattled off. What he speaks to has to do with one of the aspects of the military might, which is the bottom of the trilateral city-states. In this case, the U.S. Air Force. The U.S. Air Force back in the 80s provided money. They dished up some funds to recreate the Michelson and Morley experiment, I think in the year of 1986, if memory serves me. It was published in a magazine. I want to call it Nature Magazine, but I might be wrong, and I don't remember the issue, and I might have the title wrong, but you could figure this out. I guarantee you can still find this. And this is the guy. You're staring at the guy that fucking dished this up. He was telling people something that does reflect reality. It's not widely circulated because it's something you're not supposed to understand. Because you and I have a skeletal antenna, do we not? Have you ever heard of chakras? Well, there are 7 because there are 7 days in the week. Crudely speaking, there are 7 wandering stars, not planets. I'm throwing you some bones. In other words, the 7 rays are the 7 tones. Those two things sing to each other, and they have to do with the wandering stars and why we celebrate 7 days in a week. We're supposed to rest on one of them, and there's a bigger thought to this. But there are 7, make no mistake of that. And I need you to think about this to appreciate it. Most of you probably won't see this and or you won't think about it anyhow, and I understand that. I'm saying that based on what I've dealt with throughout the years. So, back to point. The living waters, which is prana, chi, vril, etherions. It's got a lot of names. It's the ether. It's what people call Christ, not to be confused with the Isis or the Jebus. 2 different things, two sides of the same coin. But the Christ, or what have you, these living waters pour through your skeletal antenna, mine and yours alike. This is what partially animates us. And the other aspect of this is the same asshole you're looking at and people of this ilk. I have not heard him speak to this specifically, but people who work for the same bastards who are funded by the Rockefeller Trust, which you cannot trust and you should not trust, are currently shopping around shit in the New Age community, which is in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. And what they're doing is they're urging people to believe in and repeat. They're being told, sold, and urged to repeat that there are 15 chakras and or more, which is absolutely fucking retarded. But people are repeating it. They're clicking repost. That sounds good. I like that you gave me a diagram. Sure, I'll believe that. I won't think about it. I won't look into it. I won't consider it. But I will believe that, and I will circulate the propaganda. So that's why you and I were given access to the fucking internet in the first place. The DARPA internet. Let's dance things back for a second. There's a thing called the Davos panel. It's the flip side. It's the public forum of the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group you might have heard of, having to do with a big fucking owl. The owl isn't the original fucking effigy that used to sit there. Originally it was Buddha, which is no different from Isis. Anubis, Mercury, Hermes, Dionysus, Bacchus, and Anubis. It's got a lot of names. It's the messenger. It's the devil. It's the Baphomet. It's AC/DC. It's hermaphroditic. And that's what those quote-unquote mock sacrifices are paying homage to. And you're not supposed to know that. And now it looks like a giant owl, and they just call it Moloch. Back to point. So you got the Bilderberg group, which you and I can't attend, but the public forum is the Davos panel, and those public transcripts are alive and well, and you can look that shit up. If you dance back roughly 3 decades ago, approximately, and I understand I'm not pinpointing this because I don't remember what it is exactly. It's somewhere in the research. This is old hat to me, and it's something I thought people would fucking latch on to and pick up on, but they didn't because people are not fucking thinking for themselves. The Davos panel, as some of you have heard me complain about, openly stated that they were going to give you and I numerous forms of communication, which is why AOL discs were free. And if you've heard me say this before, have yourself a laugh because I am spending time and energy saying this yet again. AOL discs were free. When you sign up for a fucking plan for a cell phone, what do you get? A free cell phone. Well, that sure sounds like red flags, but what do I know? And what am I using right now? I'm using the China app. Of all fucking things, China Talk. It's no different from the American crap because these assholes are in bed, which is why they use the same wording when you're censored. Consider this finding or this whatever ruling or however they word it is too harsh. And you'll see this in the American and the China version. And that's quite a similarity or quite a, coincidence. It's retarded is what it is. And it's because our masters, once again, are laughing at us from tall buildings. So we were told that they were going to manipulate us and spoon feed us fucking narratives. But people didn't pay attention. They didn't care. They weren't invested, which means they weren't involved. So they glossed over this. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it's a consent-based system, which is why these acts of lesser magic cut both ways. You'll be spoon-fed propaganda, but if you consent to that and you buy into it, you support it. You chose that adventure. If you're told that things are going to be fucked up and how they're going to be fucked up, which we are often taught these things. We are often sold these things. It is expressly stated in the fucking programming, which is propaganda. And people gloss over it, they laugh, and they dismiss it. They call it entertainment. That's just a movie. That's just a television show. My dad used to say, that's just in the script. Why would it be in the script? Anything that's well-financed and well-circulated can't be trusted. Why would somebody take that much time and attention and money, the resources, to dish something like that up for you and I? If you simplify things, I'll complain about, follow with me if you can and if you will. I'll complain about Billy Carson. There's a public personality who floats around on the fucking DARPA internet, and he talks about Thoth the Atlantean. If you think about Plato, which is where the Atlantis story comes from, allegedly, Plato was part of a Pythagorean cult. The Pythagorean cult was a mystery school, a boys' club, a secret society. The question you need to ask yourself to understand some of this stuff to begin with, are secret societies in place to teach you and I something that we're not supposed to know that reflects reality? And if you assume that they are, you are a fucking retard. Think about it. No, they're not. That's why they're secret societies. Otherwise, there would be no need for secret societies. You and I would simply just be taught what reflects reality because nobody's trying to pull our strings and manipulate us. Think about it, for fuck's sake. So anything that comes easy to you here in society these days falls into the same camp. But people haven't figured that much out. Going back to Plato, Plato allegedly was handed a second-hand account having to do with something known as Atlantis, allegedly. In that account, it does not state Thoth or Thoth, T-H-O-T-H, whatsoever. Just to tie things together, that's another name for Mercury, Hermes, Dionysus, Bacchus, Anubis, Isis, the Buddha, the thing that sits or originally sat in Bohemian Grove and quote-unquote mock sacrifices have been paid homage to. Just so you know. There's a reason why Billy Carson is mentioning that name. But he's also dishing something up that does not reflect reality in any form or way. He's one asshole on the internet, but there are numerous assholes on the internet, and these fuckers are not censored. I'm not saying censorship is good. You and I live in a patently fascist censorship, or patently fascist times of censorship is how I should have put it. In other words, censorship shouldn't exist, but it does. And things that have traction on the internet, no governor switch, well, those are red flags, and they should stand out like a sore thumb. But people are too stupid to fucking see what's in front of them. Usually I'll say they can't see the forest for the trees because, again, you and I are surrounded by retards, even though most people don't want to believe that. They don't want to assume that. They don't want to fucking consider that. And most likely, they are that. I'm going to play this video for you, and this is absolute propaganda. Listen closely. It has to do with what I was talking about, having to do with the Antarctic Treaty, America, China. And in this case, you could think of Yoda, because I also mentioned the Force having to do with this guy in particular telling people about the fucking ether existing as a form of lesser magic. But here, I'll just play it.
China has said when they land their craft on the lunar surface,
Horseshit.
they will broadcast to the world what they see. So here's the thing: we sent craft looking for microbes and bacterial forms of life. When those craft landed next to archaeological remnants that are over 50,000.
This is absolute horseshit. Absolute horseshit. But if you bought into the narrative, the adult fairy tale narrative of planets, you're probably receptive to things like this. If you want to believe in aliens, you're probably receptive to this, which is why those adult fairy tales were normalized. How were they normalized? You and I were given numerous forms of communication. We were given numerous forms of applications or physical mediums, if you will. That's, one way to think of a cell phone, a cellular handset. In other words, you're provided with a form of what you consider entertainment, and through that form, you have been inundated or indoctrinated into a form of propaganda and bullshit. The same difference. This is where you're spoon-fed horse shit. Another way to think of this is you have a feed for a reason. At the top of the stack, that's where you're spoon-fed garbage. That's why if you scroll down long enough, and if you step away from that and there's any distraction, it will drag you back to the top of the feed, because this shit is manipulating you and I. It is divisive as it fucking comes. If things were efficient, and keep in mind, things would be efficient if it was honest, but this goes back to what I said about mystery schools. Mystery schools wouldn't exist if you and I weren't being manipulated. So, if things were actually efficient and you and I were working towards good things, and by and large, we're surrounded by people who are well-meaning, when you scroll down, the internet wouldn't lag, for one, and it sure as shit wouldn't drag you back to the top of the stack, because that would inhibit what you were doing. But do you hear people taking an issue with this? That's just how things are. That's just the way things are. Don't rock the boat. Don't think for yourself. Heaven forbid. You got this. Positive vibes only. I'll repeat anything. Waka waka waka, motherfucker.
Years old. On the moon. On the lunar surface.
Sure.
And when China sends those images back, my sense, and I don't have an inside track any longer, my sense is that we're going to see structures that are there, and I've seen the photographs of the structures. They all the way back to the Clementine missions.
This guy's got to be paid well, and or somebody has threatened people he likes and loves to be able to say this shit. This is dark. It is dark. Because he's openly lying to people. Look at how many people have circulated this. 302 idiots have already circulated this. 6,425 have clicked like because they're dumb. 791 have clicked the fucking bookmark option because apparently this is captivating to them. They want to believe this. There's no proof of this, and there never will be, because this does not reflect reality. I know I'm not spoon-feeding you the finer details, and I'm not about to. If you guys know what I'm talking about, I've been babbling about this shit long term. And I've given you guys bits and pieces here and there fairly recently within the last 4 months, maybe less. I spoon-fed you guys shit having to do with why satellites don't exist. And I'm not referring to undersea cables. I'm not referring to high altitude balloons. I'm not. I gave you guys something else. Something you don't find on the internet, typically speaking. Because we're surrounded by fucking retards. And the genuine answers behind this shit are not circulated. They are not fucking circulated. Which is why most people believe this shit.
That were through freedom of information had to be released China has said.
And that casts doubt on the Freedom of Information Act. Through and fucking through. Freedom of fucking Propaganda Act. Think about it. For fuck's sake. Take the time and scrutinize this shit. A superficial Google search does not suffice. And you probably won't be able to figure out some of this shit for a while. You'll have to keep chipping away. Initially, most signs are probably going to tell you that this shit is real. And this shit is true now. Because you and I are being manipulated. Another point to appreciate. My throat is so dry tonight. If you think of 1984, I forgot the author's real name. The fucker who wrote that book worked for the Ministry of Propaganda, for the lack of better words. He was paid to write that shit because that shit is lesser magic. If you're paying attention, we're living through aspects of that. And what you and I are living through is worse than that. It's worse than a Brave New World. It's worse than most of the utopian bullshit future, scenarios that you'll see in the fucking programming. And yet, you and I are surrounded by people who don't get it. They don't see it for what it is. Or they make light of it as if it were satire. These are the same people who, typically speaking, breed. And their babies are being raised in this shit, and they're not taught to think for themselves at all. Which means down the line, things will be assuredly worse than they are now. But what do I keep saying? What the fuck do I know?